Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk with Keaton Frieberg, a law partner with Texas Suits who specializes in real estate and business transactions and litigation. Keaton, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're looking sporty.
Thank you. I'll try it.
I'm not going to tell anybody that your suit doesn't match your pants. Your jacket doesn't match.
Now everybody knows. Might as well just back up.
Let the record reflect that his coat does not match his pants.
I got ready in the dark. I did it.
I love it. Do you have a
now.
disclaimer or anything that you need? Because you're like a full-fledged lawyer.
Oh, yeah. Can you move that to the beginning of this?
Maybe. Go ahead and say it, though.
Okay. All right, yeah. Everything that is said in today's podcast is purely informational. It's not legal advice. You know, if you have a situation come up, you should seek the advice of counsel and not rely on information stated in today's podcast.
Great, off the cuff. Love it.
Yeah. You actually
Legal
said that in a
ease.
very relational way.
I was trying.
Yeah.
Good.
I was going to say also, I do not give legal advice. I do have a license here in the state of Texas for real estate.
Yeah.
So I am not a lawyer. You need to hire your own lawyer to clear questions, legal questions. And obviously, my investments that I do are creative. So again, hire an attorney or a great agent to walk you through it, or a broker to walk you through the process.
We're also going to talk with JMichael Jeffords, an entrepreneur and real estate investor. JMichael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So we're talking real estate investing on this show. This is about, I'm doing some specialty shows and stuff like that to get information and get experts in the field to come and talk about their area that they're passionate about. And let's get that information out and educate the public and have a little bit of fun doing it. So, Keaton, obviously you're involved in the law aspect of it. Give us like a quick synopsis of what you're doing in the real estate investment space, and then how you and JMichael came together. What's the deal there?
Sure, yeah. I think I can answer both questions in one. So, interesting transactions is kind of what brought JMichael and I together. And that's kind of where we've been in the real estate space. And JMichael can get into that a little bit further. But creative transactions, things that basically just aren't so traditional and require maybe a little bit of the legal side to help facilitate a deal or push it all the way through is kind of what we're doing right now, what I've been working on a lot. It could be anything from, a person who can't access their home because they don't have a legal right of way or an easement to their property, and they just need to refinance it. And they need help, showing the bank that, yes, I can actually walk or get to my property, because the bank is like, no, how do you even get there? I can't lend on this home if you can't even access it. So been helping people in that kind of space and just other deals sort of like that.
Yeah, I remember you asking about, if anybody needed help in that space with, easements and what do they call that with the establishing your property lines?
For like your surveyors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought. So how does a lawyer get involved in the survey dispute side of it, or figuring that out? What do you do to facilitate that, just generally?
Yeah, well, what you got to do is at some point you have to have an easement, and it'll end up being recorded. But to get the metes and bounds to basically tell somebody where the easement is, where is the actual place that I'm going to now occupy or have the ability to occupy. That's where the surveyor comes in. They'll go out there and they'll stake it, and they'll give you the metes and bounds that you put on the easement, that you end up, having some other, the grantor in that case, the individual who's giving somebody else the right to walk or drive on a strip of property. That's what you'll give to them for them to sign off and say, yep, I'm okay with that.
Is that how you get involved, is for that person signing that right?
Yes, actually drafting the easements, or sometimes if that potential grantor doesn't want to sign it voluntarily, then in the case if it's like an easement by necessity and you do actually have the right to, somebody does have the right to use another individual's land to access their own and they don't want to give it up, then sometimes you have to go to court over it.
Because the state of Texas guarantees a right to an easement, but sometimes there's fighting from the actual person
who doesn't want to give it up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to also, and then it gets pretty nitty gritty, because it's like, well, okay, fine. They do have the right to use this land, but like where and how much?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where surveyors come in, or we come in.
I grew up in a 20-year feud between my mother and our back neighbor because of that exact type of problem.
Yeah,
it was rowdy.
Her family's the Hatfields and McCoys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, except there was no.
Totally kidding.
No, I grew up with my mom telling me the This is terrible. But she told me the lady who lived behind us was a witch who ate children.
Oh.
Because they
All
bought a
over
piece of property and they didn't have access to it and they needed an easement. And they started, asking everybody in front of them for the easement property. And it just so happened my mom got the short end of the stick. And she was really unhappy with that. So years.
Right, this ends up on the University of YouTube, and everybody's like, wait a second, I did the way you said it, dude.
That's one of the big things they'll get realtors on, though, is as practicing law. Because if they write anything into those contracts that's not specifically allowed, it's considered practicing law, and they'll get you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
they
almost
do
safer
it-
not to have a license.
It actually is safer not to have a license. It's turning into what California turned into, where they make it, if you have a license, a real estate license, even though it only takes people, it took me to pass this stuff 2 weeks here.
Yeah.
It took 30 days from start to get my license, finished, signed off by the state. And you're held to a different standard. And if you make money now in real estate as an agent, you have to abide by certain legal, parameters. And it just makes it a lot more difficult. So, yeah. If
How
you're going
does-
to do investing, don't necessarily get your license.
So, how did you guys ended up just on a real estate transaction? You go back, were you kid friends like in high school? I mean, what's the deal here? How do you guys know each other? Sorry, I just want to know.
Anybody looking at the video?
No, that's a good question. Yeah, just some sort of creative deal that came up, and I think maybe you needed some help on.
You guys hit
something
it
and-
off as far as, hey, I like you, you like me, we can make some money together?
Yeah, well, just talking over some of these transactions and talking over the market, where it's going, and just discussing some of the nuances of real estate, I think is where we kind of.
Now it's time to go out and take over.
Yeah.
So what do you bring? I know what Keaton brings to the table. What do you bring to the table?
Well, first, I'll go back to that point. Oh, shoot. I thought I put it on silent. But every great investor or real estate person here in Texas or where in the United States needs a great lawyer to work with.
100%.
Yes.
And if you're going to do real estate, get a real estate lawyer to work with. Absolutely. That's the first thing I did, boots on the ground, when I first got here to Texas. So I was my family's from North Texas, but I was raised in California. So when I came back to Texas 2.5 years ago, the very first thing I did was start reaching out for, legal
I think you
attorneys.
probably learned that in California, right? You're like, oh, I
When
need an
something good
attorney for
came.
everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, first and foremost. And second, what I bring to the table, I've been doing real estate. I've been either as an investor, as a developer, an agent, or rehabber, whatever you want to call it, for almost 30 years. I'm in my 29th year right now. I was in the military full time, and my friends were buying cars, and I bought my first house at 19. And then I rehabbed it, and then 18 months or 24 months later, I bought 3 houses. And then I just started on the investor side. I went backwards. And then after a while, I said, hey, I might as well. I'm doing this anyways. I'm doing this for investors. I might as well get my license.
There you go.
So I got my license, and I was taught by the people, the old salty dogs, the gals and guys that had 150, 200 homes in their portfolios, and they were just regular mom and pops, janitors, or they just had the little business. And I said, how did you do that? And they taught me how to do that, and basically they're very creative structuring of deals. And from there, I basically you can do that.
Yeah.
And then I just have always used those creative ways to build portfolios. That led me to be able to travel all over the world, 79 countries in the past 30 years. And so
Take some time off to learn how to dance.
yeah, exactly. I had it was 3 months on, 3 months off for years. That was just the thing.
I love
Pretty
that.
much.
So
That is cool.
I've heard the word creative a lot, and I feel like, especially if anybody's listening to this and doesn't have a huge amount of research into the real estate world, they hear creative and that goes, "Phew." What are some examples of creative ways? Because the traditional is you go to the bank, you get pre-approved, you buy the real estate, XYZ. So tell me about the word creative.
Yeah. So creatively speaking about creative, Okay, so financing. So usually the ownership of real estates, there's two forms of ownership. There's like the legal person that like lives there, it's a landlord, whatever, property owner, and then there's the bank side of ownership, right? So most people have a hard time with the bank side of ownership because they don't have financing. They, maybe they don't have a stable job, or they have stable money coming in, but it comes from different sources. So the banks are like, I'm not going to loan this to this guy. So usually creative to me means the structuring of the financing of the deal, because most sellers will sell it to you if you have cash, but if you don't have cash, how are you going to do it? Well, there's many different ways to structure deals. You can do it as an option. If you think that a piece of property is getting developed and the city's moving out a certain way, you can put an option on land out towards that area, and then you don't actually buy the land or the house or the property. You actually put an option to buy the property at a future date for a future, agreed on set amount of money. And then that way, as the development happens out there, maybe you bought in when they thought it was worth, $50,000 an acre, and it goes up to $400,000 an acre, like in the hill country, and you cash in your option, you execute the contract, and now you just made, maybe on your $50,000 option, made $500,000 or $1 million.
That's nice. That's a creative way to make money, as they say.
Oh, developing real estate also. Most people that are buying lots and land, everybody's coming to Texas for land. Most people are looking for an acre, maybe a couple acres. So they're not looking for 40 or 50 acres. So if you want to go out there, put a deal together for 40, 50 acres, and then you get a surveyor to go out there, an engineering company to go out there and replat the land into 2-acre plats, and then you may have picked up the 40 acres for, for $100,000. And then you go out there and you resell each 1-acre lot or 2-acre lot for $50,000 or $100,000 each, because people aren't looking for that. They're looking for what? So you do highest and best use. It's called highest and best use for land or for residential commercial property.
Okay. So what's hot here in the San Antonio area? Is that it? Is it taking the big pieces and breaking them into smaller ones and selling them off?
Oh, that's right now, because we're in a transitioning market. We have, our inventory in the market is still under historical levels. Historical levels should be, of single-family residences on the market should be about 12,000. We're about 10,500 to 10,800 on this morning. And so we're still a little under inventory. But the hot part of this market is, creative financing, seller financing deals, where people are buying houses without the bank credit with the seller financing type of deal set up. And then also out in the south part, south San Antonio, lots of acreage for sale. Yeah. People, that's a hot one. And like working on a deal, $165,000 house with 6 acres, and then cutting it up into 3 parcels and selling each parcel for $100,000. But the middle parcel has the house, rehab the house, sell it for maybe $250,000 or $300,000. So walk out of there with a couple $100,000, maybe $250,000 in your pocket from a deal that cost you maybe $60,000 all in.
Wow. So you invest mostly for the equity turnaround.
Yeah, I do a forced appreciation, some type of forced appreciation.
And what about cash flow?
Cash flow is only important when you're doing something like you're buy and hold, right? The DSCR loans work really good for a property that cash flows really well, because you're using the property. DSCR is debt service loan, to where you're using the cash flow of the property to actually qualify for the loan. And usually your interest rate is a little bit higher on those deals, but you don't have as much to put out. Sometimes you don't even have to have a credit score. It depends on how much cash flow is coming in. They don't even check your credit score, or your income levels.
But JMichael, do you like cash flow?
I love cash flow. Yeah, I do love cash flow.
I think that's the answer we were looking for.
Oh, really?
I mean, any answer is good when it comes to cash flow. So you're talking force equity on that side, which I appreciate, because getting those lump sums is great. Where are you investing for cash flow?
Well, right now, I've set up different LLCs with investors that I know, that they basically put money into the LLC, and I create cash with those LLCs. We usually, the perfect situation is where you buy a piece of property that you have to rehab, you don't buy it already up to date
Yeah.
and stuff. And a great deal. I have we just have this one for 1,600 square foot duplex for got it on a $91,000 owner contract. Put $4,000 down. Have a balloon payment, so no payments for a year. Absolutely no payments a year, and the note interest is 3%.
Oh, wow.
So we're turning that into a cash flow deal. We're debating between renting out the units or renting out the rooms, and then we'll sell it to an investor on the backside. Once the property is rehabbed and it's cash flowing, we'll sell it to an investor.